If you're starting out, just like anything in business, this is a great business to go into if you don't have that much capital, because you can spend $100, $200, $300, and the startup fees are free. You need an eBay, you need a PayPal, you need a Facebook, you need an Instagram. Those four things have something in common. They're all free. And have a plan. Know that you're buying lower end cards and sending them to PSA, and it's going to take 30 days to get back to you, or 45 days, whatever service you choose. And kind of predict your cash flow, predict when you could buy new cards, and just keep the revolving door going. And as you get better and better, you'll start buying higher end cards and lower end cards, and you'll just be doing everything in every sport.
What's going on, everybody? Steve here, Raiken Profit over at RaikenProfit.com, coming back to you with another video. I'm here with Eric. What's going on, brother?
How's it going? Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Eric, he's been selling cards on eBay, Facebook groups, Craigslist. You've been buying and selling for over 3 years now?
It's really picked up in the past couple of years, but I've actually been doing it for about almost 6 years now.
He's only 22 years old. He's done over $1 million in sales, buying and selling baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards. Do you trade anything else, or is that your main thing?
That's like 98% of it. Yeah. Those three sports.
And he's been absolutely crushing it. What would you say your average profit is on like a card, or like what do you typically pay for a card, and what do you usually sell it for?
When I'm grading a card, I like to try and come close to doubling my money. So maybe like 80, 90%-ish. Yeah. That's what I go for, but it doesn't always work out that way.
And what are your thoughts right now in 2020? I mean, even going on to 2021, 2022, what's your like 2-year forecast, and like what's the current state of the market right now in terms of buying and selling cards?
So I talk about this all the time. This is the time to get in. Like, this is the time when drop shipping was beginning. That's what sports cards is right now. Getting in now is huge. And a big reason for this is because something like drop shipping, or better example, let's say you own an Italian restaurant in New York, right? The more Italian restaurants that pop up in New York means more competition. There's less mouths in your restaurant. However, with sports cards, saturation is good. The more people that get in means the prices of cards are going to go up and up and up, which is good for everybody.
Awesome. So I'm really excited about this video because what we're going to be covering is grading sports cards for complete beginners. Now, I do want to say right now, there's only so much we can cover in this video. If you want to learn more about how to grade sports cards, which players to buy, how to get started, if you really want someone step-by-step to take you, by your hand and really break into a lot of the details, go to RaikenProfit.com/cards. It's a free workshop that Eric and I are hosting. We're going to go more in depth, more details, and we're also going to share with you how you can work with Eric one-on-one. He does coaching, mentorship, and you've helped a lot of people, like hundreds of people over the last couple of years buying and selling cards. And I'm actually in his group, and every single day he's helping people one-on-one, telling them what cards to buy, mistakes to avoid, so on and so forth. So check that out, RaikenProfit.com/cards. But let's dive into it. So first and foremost, Eric, what the heck does it even mean to grade a sports card for the beginners who are watching?
Okay, so grading a sports card is there's companies out there that will grade a card based on its cleanliness and condition. So there's certain factors and different pieces of criteria that I'm going to talk about. But generally, it's, you're trying to get a card in a raw state, straight from the pack, or, it's not graded yet, into a solid grade. If it's a solid grade, if it's a high grade, that means the value is going to go up.
Cool. I'm going to pull out a card right here, if you don't mind me. And I want to show, is it okay if I just pull out anything?
Pull out a random one.
So what do we have right here? Because I want to give them an example so they know what a graded card is.
So this is a Yankees prospect. His name's Davey Garcia. This is probably a $300 card about. And I bought the card for about $150, and that's just kind of how grading works. You can see in that encapsulation, that 9.5 indicates it's graded at 9.5 out of 10. That's kind of what you want to aim for in terms of grading, because that 9.5 is where the value goes up. At a 9, you're really not going to see much of a value increase.
Awesome. So when you mentioned grading criteria, what exactly does that mean?
So there's two big companies that grade. There's Beckett. People call it BGS for short.
And that was Beckett right there.
And it's PSA. That was Beckett. I mainly grade with Beckett for the most part. Not all the time, but for the most part. And Beckett has 5 pieces of criteria they grade their cards on: corners, edges, centering, surface, and autograph. And if you go back to this card, you can see there's those subgrades right there: centering, surface, edges, corners, and autograph. They literally will tell you what each one is, and that's how they evaluate the condition of a card.
Does Beckett stand for BGS, or what does BGS stand for?
BGS stands for Beckett Grading Services.
Okay, so there's Beckett Grading Services, there's PSA. Are there any other ones that?
Oh, there are. There's one called SGC. SGC's
I've heard of that
mainly
one, yeah.
for it's better with vintage cards. It's just not as desirable as these two. These two are the biggest, PSA and Beckett. So that's what I like to stick to. There's other ones that are trying to kind of create a little bit of a dent in the market and make an impact. Like there's one called GMA. I would just stay with PSA and Beckett.
Okay, cool. And which one's more expensive?
So now it depends on the grade. So you have a BGS 9.5 is worth a little bit less than a PSA 10. So it goes like BGS 9.5, PSA 10, and then BGS 10 is worth more than all those. So that's just kind of how the way it goes.
Is the pricing, so obviously you have a raw card. A raw card is something that's not in a case, it's not graded. Maybe you buy it off eBay for $60, right? You send it in. When you send it in, are there different prices based on like how you want to get it graded? So say you send it into Beckett, are there like pricing tiers, or does the price differ based on if it's a 9.5 or if it's a 9 or a 10? Okay,
so the way the pricing structure works is, me personally, I'll speak for how I do business. So I really won't buy any cards worth less than $500. You know, I spend $500 on a card. Now there's different grading services. You can get a card graded in one day for about $100. 2 days for $50. These are business days. So 1 business day, 2 business days.
Interesting.
5 business days is about $30-ish. Then you have 10 business days, which is about maybe 25-ish. And then you have 30 business days, which is about maybe 15 to 20. And then there's a non-guaranteed service. Non-guaranteed, maybe it's $8 to $10 a card, but they'll take like up to a year to get the card back to you. Now, since I'm buying higher-end cards at $500, and you could generally see a 50 to 75% increase when a card gets a 9.5, I could afford to pay $50 for a 2-day service to get it graded. Because if I spend $500, I spend $50 on grading, now I could try and sell it for $700, $800 plus. Rather, you spend $50 on a card, you don't want to spend $50 to get it graded because that's the whole cost of the card and there's all your profit.
Got it. So PSA is more lenient versus Beckett in terms of centering, but harder on corners. So when someone's choosing a product in a card, you want to take into consideration the condition before you send it in. Is that your mindset?
Yeah. So now, if you have a card in crystal clear condition, except the centering's off a little bit, I would suggest going to PSA, because PSA, for whatever reason, it's just how they do business. They look at the centering less and they value the corners more. So opposite, vice versa goes for BGS. If you have a card that's centered perfectly, the corners are a little bit white, but the rest of the card looks good, send it into Beckett. So that's just how I do business and the way I look at the two companies.
So obviously, if you want to learn more about mentorship with Eric, just join the free workshop, and we'll give you more details. We're not going to sell you on his mentorship here, but I know you had mentioned in your program, I think I overheard you on the call, that you have do you have a grader or somebody that you work with for your students only?
Yeah, so I have what's called a group grader, or a personal grader, I like to call him. And so what he does, he lives by the Beckett facility in Dallas, Texas. He lives about an hour away. Everybody sends him cards, and he takes all the cards, he cleans them, he evaluates the condition for you. If he sees a card's in bad condition, he'll pull it out of the pile so you don't waste money getting a card in bad condition graded. He drives them all to the facility twice a week, drops them off, picks it up a couple days later, sends you scans of the cards, it bills you your total, you pay him, he ships it back to you, bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, so get on a workshop. I'll put a link for if you want to get on a call with Eric to talk about that. But have a plan. So certain cards are going to be lower end, certain cards are going to be higher end. I'm assuming you mean based on the value of the price. So like if you have a card that's maybe only worth $150 versus $1250, you have a different strategy in terms of how you're going to grade it, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so if you're starting out, just like anything in business, this is a great business to go into if you don't have that much capital, because you can spend $100, $200, $300, and the startup fees are free. You need an eBay, you need a PayPal, you need a Facebook, you need an Instagram. Those four things have something in common. They're all free. And have a plan. Know that you're buying lower end cards and sending them to PSA, and it's going to take 30 days to get back to you, or 45 days, whatever service you choose. And kind of predict your cash flow, predict when you could buy new cards, and just keep the revolving door going. And as you get better and better, you'll start buying higher end cards and lower end cards, and you'll just be doing everything in every sport. So that's kind of what I mean by plan. Less plan, more a path. Have a path. Know your cash flow and these how long it takes you to get these cards back, kind of give you a predictable cash flow.
How long did it take you to really start getting comfortable with sending into PSA, sending into Beckett, having your plan, understanding the difference between the lower end and the higher end, and sort of figuring things out?
So I was lucky. In the beginning, when I first started, I had a friend that taught me everything. I had a mentor. And to be blatantly honest with you, I just went straight in because that's the type of person I am. And I saved up. I used to deliver pizza, and I saved up $4,000.
Hey, me too, man. I was all about that life.
You were?
I know.
That's
it's
funny.
Quick cash, man.
It is. It's just great cash, and you're no waiting for a direct deposit or anything. But I saved up $4,000, and for you baseball New York Met fans out there, the first card I bought was a Bowman Chrome Orange Refractor Steven Matz. I bought it raw. I paid $500 on eBay. I spent $25 to get it graded at the time, and I sold it for $888. I still remember. I don't know how it got to that number.
Insane.
And from there, I was like, holy crap. On one hand, I was delivering pizza, making $60 a night for 4 or 5 hours of work, and on the other hand, I clicked some buttons and I made $300+, and from there I was hooked, and I just really got into things after that. But that was my beginning experience in sports cards.
I could relate to that because I remember I was delivering pizzas, and at the time I was buying and selling bicycles on Craigslist, and I'd work all day at the pizzeria and make $100, $150, and I would go on Craigslist and buy like a Cannondale road bike for $75 and flip it for $350. There was one time I went to a garage sale and I picked up these 2 Trek bikes. I paid $25 each, and I sold them each for one for like $150 and one for $250, and I made like $300 in like 20 minutes, and I was like, what the heck? So it's not necessarily how hard you work, which is like a big it's like a mind fuck for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't get it. They think like my income is going to be in direct correlation with how hard I work, but a lot of times it's choosing the right strategy.
Yeah, it's work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put things.
Let's talk a little bit about, and we're going to just kind of like brush over it a little bit because this is a deep topic, but talking about higher end modern cards plus new releases going to Beckett.
Okay, so I'll just simplify this. It's way more complex than I'm going to make it sound, but these sports cards that come into the market, they come from exactly what you think. Packs, like Bowman Chrome when it comes out in, let's say, March usually. People break open these cases and packs, and some get lucky, they pull these higher end cards, and that's how they get into the market. And just common sense. If a card is brand new out of a pack, it's probably in good condition rather than a card from 2012 that hasn't been graded yet. It hasn't been graded for a reason. So these cards are very gradable. Be careful though, because when new products come out, prices are artificially inflated, so they go down in the coming weeks or months.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do, because once again, it's a business built on hype and emotion. People are excited that the product's coming out.
Got it.
People are excited that these rookies that haven't no autographs yet finally have autographs. There's excitement, there's hype, and people pay. So that's kind of how product releases work, and I like to send a lot of the new products to Beckett.
So you had written down mass base go to PSA. Are these the mass-produced cards, the everyday common cards?
Yeah, sort of. So what you could do is buy a bunch of lower end cards for, worth $10, $20 each. You hear me talk all the time about how I buy these expensive cards. It wasn't always like that. I used to buy a lot of base cards and, get 100 of them and, spend like, let's say $1,000 on 100 of them, so $10 each. I would send them into PSA and, 2-3x my money after the grading costs. So there is a huge market for base cards.
But it probably takes a lot of time. Like, I'd assume there's a lot more logistics with having 100 cards sent into PSA, getting them all back, listing them all up.
There is.
So it's probably a lot more work, but it might be attractive to a lot of people watching who don't have a lot of money to start.
Correct. So, there's a couple things you could do. These are very liquid cards because they're affordable to the average person. Not everybody does this to make money and as a business. There's a lot of collectors out there who don't have a big budget. They have families to spend, to pay for. And, these base cards that are worth $50, $60 as PSA 10s, people love them. Collectors buy them, I buy them, and the average person buys them. So that's why they're very liquid. You could sell them in lots. You don't have to sell them one individually at a time. You could sell 8 at a time, 10 at a time. That's what I used to do, and it worked out pretty well.
So let's say someone's watching right now and they have $1,000 and they buy I don't know 50 of one particular player and card. And what's the most common way that someone would get 50 of one player? Like on eBay?
Yeah, eBay, Facebook,
Yeah, so you go on Facebook.
Search on eBay.
You go on eBay. You get 50. How do you start to kind of predict the grade? Like, how do you know like the card's going to be a 9 or a 9.5? Because what I typically do in my business and what I teach is I teach people to look through the sold listings. But it seems like it's a little more open for interpretation with cards because you might have an 8.5 or a 9 or a 9.5. So can you give a little bit of your mentality in terms of like how you're gonna predict what it's gonna sell for, because you don't know if it's gonna be a 10 or a 9.
Of course. So this number 7 is probably the most important thing when getting into sports cards, just in the whole industry. This is your moneymaker. And you have to be able to evaluate or try your best. And I actually teach this in my mentorship program, and this is the biggest part of it, how to judge the condition of a card. And it takes years of experience in knowing what these graders look for and what kind of centering is appropriate. And a lot of the time you'll do your due diligence, the card will look great and it'll grade crappy. And these cards are being graded not by machine but by humans. And we're humans with emotions, and if a grader's having a bad day, he may just give a lot of shitty grades. So that's kind of how grading works. It's a little bit of a crapshoot at the same time, but knowing what you're doing definitely helps. It's kind of like poker, half luck and half skill.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, they think about the trading card market and they're like, oh, there's like too much to know and there's so much I need to know. Like all this stuff about grading is probably overwhelming a lot of people. But what I want to say is some of the best opportunities are when you could solve a really good problem, right? Like something like this, the average person is gonna be like, oh, it's too much for me and I'm gonna just give up. But if you go through the free workshop or you check out his mentorship or you really spend the time learning this stuff, and again, I know there's only so much we could cover, there's big money buying raw cards, grading cards, and he's got a ton of cards over there. And if you get into the free workshop, we're gonna go more in depth into this, but there's a huge opportunity with sports cards. So I highly recommend you, again, don't just take this information and run with it, because really there's so much more to know. Check out the free workshop, raikenprofit.com/cards. I'll give you information to be able to jump on a call with Eric if you want to learn about his mentorship. We're gonna give you discounts, bonuses, tons of free videos. So with that being said, any final words about grading or anything you want to say to the people who have consumed this content?
Yeah, man, grading is just something that comes with experience. I'd be happy to tell you guys as much about it as I can on a phone call, but this is probably the most important part of sports cards if you want to get in it for making money. So yeah, hop on a call with me. I would love to talk about it more.
Awesome. I'll put a link down below. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, and subscribe. And with that being said, keep on picking and making that money, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.